is Dave Arnold, your host of Cooking Issues, coming to you live from the heart of Manhattan, Rockefeller Center, New York City, Newsstand Studios. Joined as usual with John behind me. How you doing, John?
Doing great, thanks.
Yeah, everything good?
Yeah.
A very cold day here in New York City. Got Joe Hazen rocking the panels.
Hey, how you doing? Very cold.
Cold, yeah, whatever. You know who hates people talking about the weather? Nastasia the Hammer Lopez, who has to hightail soon, but is here at the beginning. How you doing, Stas? Good. And over there in Los Angeles, we have Jackie Molecules. Jack Inslee, how you doing?
Yo, I'm good.
Yo, and full crew upper left, we got Quinn. How you doing, Quinn?
Hey, I'm good.
Good. And I'm pleased to announce back for Classics in the Field. Yeah, it's Matt Sartwell from Kitchen Arts and Letters, everybody's favorite cookbook store up on Lexington Avenue between, 93 and 94. 93 and 94, yeah. Now listen, if you bike there, remember, there's the one big hill in Manhattan you got to get through, but it's worth it. It's worth it. You know what I mean? Wait, the hill's before you or after you?
Depends which way you're coming from.
I guess that's true.
Yeah, if you're coming from the west side, it's easy, but from the south or the east, it's bitter.
Yeah, it's a nice walk from the subway, though.
Easy walk from the subway.
Yeah. On that green line. All right. So, since Nastasia has to leave early, she wants everyone to know. I'm assuming this is what you want to talk about, Stas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everyone should get excited because your dumbest bartender is coming to town.
Get excited. We are going to, Nastasia and I will be making an appearance next Monday. That is, so if you're not a Patreon listener, it means you just heard this like right now. You got to leave right now if you're not on the Patreon. On Monday, I don't know what time starting, but he'll put stuff out. But Mike Capaferri's new bar, Night on Earth, we're going to be there and we're going to sling, I don't know, like 3 or 4 drinks until those from Contra, first come, first serve until those drinks are done. Is that pretty accurate, Stas?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I was going to try to do a class,
That'd be great.
but it fell through. So I was going to try to do a class on that Tuesday, but fell through. Sponsor fell through. So, and you can't do it for free because it just takes a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just takes a lot of stuff to do.
But if there is a sponsor that's listening, let us know.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So I don't want anyone to say ever, Nastasia, that I never do anything that you want to do, like you said on the radio last week or whatever. But okay.
This is actually an opportunity. This is like when Maria Guarnaschelli kept begging me to meet with you, and you were like, I don't want to meet her. And I was like, okay, but it's important. And then you got this great book out of it. So I'm like, hey, there's this opportunity in L.A., which is not the pop-up.
Yeah.
So,
we will see how this... I'm pretty sure that Nastasia and I are going to have another opportunity to work together, which, yay. And then we're probably going to have an opportunity to not get paid together. But we will see whether or not we have yet another opportunity to not get paid together. Let's hope so.
That's our favorite.
That's our favorite. It's our favorite. Listen, if anyone out there has some sort of a project where we can put in maximal work and care and really do the best possible job that our decades of experience doing this kind of thing, and then just not pay us, just give us a call. We're in. Anyway. All right. Any good food stories before you have to hightail it there, Stas? By the way, before you start, a question for you before I forget. Where does hightail come from? Is it animals that if their tail is low, it'll drag through the poop that they just did? What is it?
I think when animals are scared, their tails raise and they run, right?
Okay, fair. That's good.
Yeah, it's like a bull tail will raise when it runs.
All right, sorry, Stas. Go ahead. Sorry.
I ate at the place called Heartwood in Mexico, which everybody raised about, and it was fun.
So they don't burn any sapwood at all, just heartwood only.
HART. I don't know.
Heart like deer.
But
they're an actual restaurant though. They're not like Montereysa is now, where it's just pop-ups only.
No, it's an actual restaurant. It was fine.
All right. Anything stand out as being particularly good, bad, or particularly meh?
No.
All right. Well, Good talk. So I don't know if you heard because you're down in Mexico, but sad news many sad things, of course, happened this last weekend. But in terms of my tiny little world, Andre Soltner died. He was 92 years old. For those of you that don't know, Andre Soltner was one of the original. Well, this is not why he's famous, but he's one of the original deans at the French Culinary Institute where Nastasia and I met, where I was the director of culinary technology. The only remaining original dean is Jacques Therese, which young people probably know from Nailed It, which is so crazy to me. But Andre Soltner had what was by many accounts the best restaurant in the United States for decades called Lutèce. And in fact, it was featured in Mad Men because it opened right around the time that Mad Men was set to start. And so they have a very early version of Lutèce in the, I think, season 1 of Mad Men. And when I was a kid in the 70s, it was the restaurant that I wanted to go to most. And I remember I wanted to go alone back when I thought solo dining was cool. I hate solo dining now, but I didn't end up going alone. I think I went with my dad when I was 11 in 1982. I still remember it. And then, so it was a huge honor to get to work with Andre. Andre was a total sweetheart, complete sweetheart, and like a chef. And one of those old school things that doesn't make sense anymore where if the restaurant was open, he was in the restaurant. His wife was basically GM, ran the front of house, and it was their team, and they ran it together. And if it was open, those two were there. And then, he nursed her until she finally passed away, found a second kind of love, and then finally, he's 92, but still, great guy.
Totally humble. He came into the bookstore once. I spotted him right away, but he was looking around and he finally came over and very diffidently introduced himself. I used to have this restaurant. I was like, yes. And I first heard about Lutèce when I got to work in publishing, and I was handed my corporate expense card and a list of 5 restaurants that were too expensive to eat at. And at the top of it was Lutèce, and it was forbidden.
So, but you went eventually, no?
No, I never. Oh
my goodness.
No.
Many
regrets.
I feel like when I was there, they were probably 20 years in or something like that. 20 years into a 40-year run. And yeah, it was great. Even from a kid's perspective, completely on point. And so he used to do demos all the time. And so he was Alsatian, right? So he had this kind of Alsatian accent, buys the best, waste nothing. You know what I mean? And then that was what he would say constantly, buys the best, waste nothing. And then I remember he told me that he never had a vacuum machine because he buys fresh every day. Why would he need a vacuum machine? I was like, okay, chef. You know what I mean? Okay, chef. Yeah, he used to cook he would get these giant rondos. Stas, you remember this when he was doing his demos? Almost all the other deans, they would have whoever was running the amphitheater, which is where people do all of their prep. Andre Soltner would show up at the Crack whenever he had a demo day, get a rondo as big as he was, huge, and just slice infinity onions and just sit there and take his onions down for hours. He would always tell the same joke about how when he was a kid, he would hide his glass of booze or his bottle of booze in the rondo and then take sips out of it. But just a real class act. Will be missed. Very generous with his information and time. Just not. I bet you. I think they were one of the original silent kitchens, right? He didn't talk in the kitchen.
I don't know about that. It wouldn't surprise me. He was so smooth and unperturbable.
Yeah. Anyway, I remember this. I had a mean duck when I was there. Dude knew how to cook a duck. But anyway, all right. So anything else from the past week? Jack, you all safe there in LA? Are things mellowing out or what?
Yeah, things are relatively normal again here. I did start cooking through the Madhur Jaffrey Indian cookery book, which I'm sure is at Kitchen Arts and Letters.
Well, which one? Doesn't she have a billion?
So the old one.
Oh. Invitation?
No, just Jaffrey's Indian Cookery.
Yeah, the name of it. A lot of them have very similar titles. So
They do. I know. It's kind of confusing. But man, those recipes, they really still hit.
Yeah. Does anyone still read Krishna's cuisine, Yamuna Devi?
People seek it out. I mean, it's not in print anymore. It hasn't been in print for a long time. But
that was like the book like 30 years ago, right?
It was the rival to the Sani.
Yeah. That's the first cookbook I got. First Indian cookbook that I got. And it was, let's just say, daunting.
It was immersive, definitely immersive. I mean, she was an outsider taking you inside. So it was a very passionate, deep dive. It had a troubled publishing history. It was sort of started with this small company that never quite had the money to keep it going. They partnered with a bigger company that got bought up, and in the way publishing in the late 20th century was, swallowed and swallowed and swallowed. But
the copy I have is white and looks like it was printed by a trade publisher.
Yeah, it might say Bala Books on the spine. That's the original publisher. Then it became E.P. Dutton, and then I don't know if it ever became Penguin USA, but they got swallowed by Penguin.
That's a nightmare, being swallowed by a penguin. That means you're a tiny, gross fish. Yeah. You know what I mean? Have you ever read the book Hoosh?
The one about the Antarctic?
Yes. Cooking penguins, mainly. It's mainly how to cook penguin and how to cook seal. Those are the two things that they would cook, are penguins and seals, the occasional other mammal like a walrus and stuff. But apparently penguins, not bad, but they are different, species to species. I forget which one was the best penguin, which made the best hoosh, which is for those of you who don't know, that's the Antarctic stew that, all of the researchers would have and the mush folks would have down there when they were hoosh. Not a great book, I don't think, but it's the only book on the subject.
Yeah, when you're the only book on the subject, you get to be as good as you want to be.
Yeah. You know of any other Antarctic cookbooks?
There was a memoir of somebody going down there to the station that included a lot of food material, but I cannot remember the title. We carried it briefly, and Hoosh always just sort of overwhelmed it. So
I like the idea that Hoosh, a book that I'm sure you and I are the only people who can hear this who have ever read, overwhelmed another book.
Well, that's about working in a niche.
Yeah, all right. We have a caller. Caller, you're on the air.
Hey, Dave, it's Nicky Sanguich out in Jersey.
Hey, what's up?
So I've got a little commercial oven, and if I wanted to get a little more airflow in there, is there any way I would be able to do that?
I mean, look, there's always a way. But the question is, there's a couple of questions. When you say it's a commercial oven, is this in a commercial establishment? So your insurance is...
I got a suppression system. I got,
Yeah, be aware that if you modify your commercial restaurant equipment, that you might be in trouble from an insurance standpoint, especially if people other than you are going to use it, if it's a permanent modification. I just got to say that right from the get-go. When you say smaller than a half sheet or a half sheet?
You could get a full sheet in there. It's just you got to put it in, long ways.
Okay. Oh, so it's narrow but deep. So it's like full depth, but okay. It can be. Look, there are. I'm trying to think. Is this true? I mean, and you don't want to cut a hole in it. You can cut a hole in it. That'll increase the airflow for sure. The only other way is to take up some of. Is it gas or electric?
Gas.
Yeah. So gas, they do have a bunch of vents into them. So there is always, I hesitate to even tell you this, but there are vents all around those things, and you can duct stuff in and out. And obviously the fans for a convection unit are in the hot space. So what those fans typically do is they have a relatively long shaft, right? And the shaft is made of a relatively poor conductor, stainless steel. And they just pray.
Right.
By the time the heat energy makes it to back where the motor is, and there's usually a second cooler on the motor thing, that the shaft has gotten below about 100 degrees C by the time it gets to the back. And that's usually the case until your bearing seizes up. And then the whole motor kind of sometimes can get toasted out. But it really requires cutting a hole in the back of the oven. And by the way, totally doable. Even with enamel, you can cut a hole through the back of the oven. But you're really then, not just avoiding the warranty, but problems with insurance. If anyone could ever trace it, if there was ever a fire. You know what I mean? Right. Technically really easy. In fact, you can just go buy the convection unit from you could just go online and look up like Garland or whatever and buy the fan. The only other problem with those fans is that they're relatively deep. So depending on where you place it, you're going to have a tough time getting the what's it called, your pans in and out, because they're relatively deep. I'm holding my fingers how big the big commercial ones are, and I want to say 2.5 inches deep at least into your oven. So if that's a problem, and then you're going to have to screw the cover over the top so that you're not feeding people's fingers and you're not feeding pastries into the fan. You could try to just duct air in through one of the vents, but then you're losing one of the vents. All of this is possible. I don't know of a system that can handle a high heat. I mean, if you made everything out of silicone, you could, but a motor that's designed for the motor to run at oven temperatures, I don't know. You know what I mean? Because then you could just throw it in the oven, have a cord sticking out of it, and, it is what it is. But I have researched it once. Maybe someone out there knows of a motor that can run at 500 Fahrenheit. If they do, please let me know.
Nice. Cool. I think you put me in the right direction here. I also just wanted to let you know my brother, Tablecloth Tom, got spins all over at the Met because he's the beverage guy over there. So
nice.
I just thought that'd be a cool thing to let you know. And,
we appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys.
Keep it spinning. Thanks.
Hell yeah.
All right. So, and by the way, caller, clearly a Patreon member. If you want to call in your questions to us or to Matt, call in your questions to 917-410-1507. That's 917-410-1507. And John, why don't you tell them how they can become a Patreon member or what they get?
Go to patreon.com/cookingissues. Become a member. We got a couple different membership levels, including free, a couple paying ones too. You get access to our live video feed, to the phone number to call us, prioritize questions being answered, discounts with great vendors that we work with, like Matt at Kitchen Arts and Letters. And just a whole bunch of great things, access to Discord, and go to patreon.com/cookingissues and check it all out.
Cool. Quinn, what do you got for us this week?
Let's see. We got 5 fresh chickens from our farmer friend. So we did I think pretty well executed, Hainanese chicken rice. We even got some frozen pandan for the broth. So basically it's a poached chicken, chilled, sliced, and then you make the rice with the resulting broth. Pretty simple, but a very nice dish, and I think it suited these sort of very free range, less industrial chickens.
It took me a long time to kind of learn to appreciate Hainanese chicken. Nils Noren, my, old compatriot at the French Culinary Institute, I don't know whether he ever actually started the restaurant, but he did years of work on trying to get the perfect low temp, chill, high throughput recipe for that. Because his, wife is I know she's Chinese, but I think she's Singapore Chinese. And so he used to do a really good job of it, but really pure, simple broth, really simple, really pure. But it took me a long time to be this is what I want. I mean, I'm straight up American. So I like when I want a cold chicken, I want chicken salad. Because you know what chicken salad is? Anybody?
Delicious.
Delicious. Oh my goodness, is chicken salad delicious. But typically in American chicken salad, there's none of the soft skin, none of that stuff. So I don't know. And the little gelade part in those cold chicken things can be tough for some people. No one in the United States, very few people in the United States, not no one, going back to the French weasels, no one likes an aspic. You know what I'm saying? No one's tucking into you're like, you know what I want? Œuf en aspic. You know what I mean? Like just a soft-boiled egg in a block of meat jello. You know what I mean?
It is making a comeback, though.
Why?
It is. No. Some new like French bistro kind of places have been putting it on their menus here in the city.
Do you ever see the old Saturday Night Live Crystal Gravy?
No.
It's like that. Crystal Gravy was this thing where they were saying that they're, by the way, it's kind of funny for someone who, like, we sell stuff to clarify things with the centrifuge. So it's making fun of, like, trying to make everything clear and color, like Pepsi Clear. Remember that?
Oh, God.
Yeah. And so they are pretending that they've made gravy clear, but they're just pouring corn syrup over everything. So it's this incredibly thick, viscous. And my son Dax, this is crazy, like, gross stuff is coming back. Dax sends me, they're now selling thick water, which is just thickened, I swear to Christ, thickened water. And Dax sends me a picture of a gallon jug of this stuff. And I remember specifically when I was teaching hydrocolloids at the French Culinary Institute, thickening just plain water so people could taste the texture. And it was one of the most vile taste experiences that you could ever have. It's just vile. Thick water is vile. You know what I mean?
And people are paying for this?
Oh, yeah. Wow. Well, that's like, do you remember? Well, probably not, because hopefully you were insulated from this, but there was a thing called a raindrop cake. Did you ever see this?
No.
It's just a block of agar.
Oh, yeah.
Just a block of agar in the shape of a giant ball. And then people are like, oh, it's not, A, not cake. B, not good. C, why? So, D, like, everyone knows how to use agar. You're not inventing anything here. You're just dumb. You're just a dummy. And it's not even a good hydro for that. You know what I mean? Like, they could have done Gel-Am. They could have done anything other than what they had done. Nightmare. How the heck did we get on this? What were we talking about? What the heck happened?
Quinn's Chicken.
Oh, yeah, Gillet, aspic, yeah. Oh, that's nice. So, but did you enjoy the fact that it was it tougher? Do you know how old the chickens were when they were slaughtered?
I don't know, but I can find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they would probably have been tougher with like a traditional sort of Western quick cooking method, but I mean,
I wouldn't rank on our cooking techniques just because you don't like our industrial chickens.
No,
I mean,
I'm saying like tougher chickens don't handle quick cooking as well.
I don't know that's. I've had when I've had tough chickens, even when they're braised, they are tough as all get out. They're tough birds. You know what I mean? Like, I guess there's a middle ground.
These weren't super tough.
Yeah. I mean, like a stew chicken? Oh my God.
No, these were not like old chickens. They were just well-raised, standard Cornish cross. Again, this farmer we get them from has a bunch of like weird, interesting breeds, but he like sells the living chickens to people.
The Living Chickens sounds like a band. The Living Chickens. So I had something with chickens. That's just erased from my mind. It's gone. I had something with chickens, but it doesn't matter. It's over now.
They'll be back.
They'll be back. You know what? I've bought what they call in Asian markets around here, fowl, which are older birds. But I don't know that I've ever bought like an old school spent, like that, where it specifically said this is a spent laying hen, like a very, very old, to do like the classic Jewish grandma chicken soup. I don't think I've ever cooked that myself.
Yeah, I don't know where you find them unless you're near a farm.
Yeah.
Or an industrial laying operation.
Yeah. But Quinn, that's what you should do, man. Just ask this farmer, see if you can get a really old spent laying. If you're lucky, it'll have like the eggs left in it.
We're asking this guy for all kinds of crap.
Yeah, but listen.
Again, whenever he does occasionally process one of the weird chickens. He's got laying chickens. He's also got emu.
Right, but
so,
that's a little large. That's a lot of soup. But listen, I encourage you, for my sake, when you get the spent layer, just follow a traditional recipe so you can see what the bird itself does. Like, I don't know, who? Joe Nathan? Who do you look at? Joe Nathan's book?
Or Jenny Grossinger.
Yeah? All right, there you go.
Go back before industrial chicken.
Pre-industrial.
Yeah.
Pre-industry. I'll tell you what, Popeyes takes industrial chicken and makes a delicious fried chicken product out of it in a very mass market sort of way. You know what I mean? I mean, if you like fried chicken, I mean, there are better fried chickens, but is there a easier, better fried chicken to source? No, there's not. Easier than Popeyes?
Well, I have a live update from my father about laying chickens.
Okay.
Should we?
Spit
Apparently, the farmer usually sells the laying chickens to other people. They do not get old in his possession.
No, then you have to find a different farmer then. Because that's the thing. And in fact, when you slaughter it just right, you have the eggs that are left in it when they get slaughtered, right? That's the old thing, and you have like the
apparently there may be troublesome roosters. There are different applications.
No eggs in a rooster.
We can make cook
No eggs in a.
We can make cook
I don't know that those. Do you know, Matt? Were those originally made actually with roosters, or is it just called that?
I don't know. It's a fair question. I would think somebody who knows more about French than I do might have some insight, but
Johnny John?
I don't know. I think I've only seen or heard about it being used with old spent ends, but it's got to come from somewhere.
The issue with the roosters is there's just not that many of them.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you kill them all. You don't want them. They're vicious creatures. Chickens were fighting birds. You know what I mean? They're vicious. Not but the roosters mean. And so you just don't have that many around because they cause problems. You have like one or two, and then the rest get chummed up when they're babies. Anyways, what about you, Molecules? You haven't chimed in yet.
What's that?
You haven't chimed in. What do you got for the week? The Jack of the Week in review.
I talked about cooking.
So
I made minced lamb and meat and green lentils and spinach. It was delicious.
Minced lamb meat.
It's really the only interesting thing I did in food, though.
So Harold McGee talks about this Turkish lamb where you have to sit there with your hands for like an hour and just keep squeezing it and make it into a paste. And he says it's great, but just it sounds repulsive. The idea of eating something that I can picture someone sitting there and squeezing with their hand for an hour just doesn't seem to me to be what I am looking for. I would prefer to have it and then later hear how it was made, you know?
It would not be the thing I would lead you with on a menu description.
Yeah, although maybe it was less time than that, but just I can picture McGee making the hand motions. So he's talking to you in like his standard McGee voice, and then he's got his hands and he's sitting there just like mangling, like, you know, squeezing this not what's the word? It's air meat. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Sort of conjures the act of milking a cow and the manipulation of the udder.
Yeah.
There's also something you might not want to think about a lot.
Yeah, no, especially not now that people are getting sick milking cows from. It's not no future pandemic talk. Nothing. Okay. All right. So what do you got to talk to us today? We'll get to some more questions later because one of them you might have something to say about. But let's before we run out of time, let's get to some classics in the field from last year. This is this year's classics.
This year's classics. This list is available on the Kitchen Arts and Letters website and our blog. But I came up with 14 books that I thought came out last year that were really outstanding. Some of them are people I know you've had here on the show.
Yeah, a couple of them, yeah.
Discerning insights.
And plus, we also ask Matt.
Well, usually it's like, what do you think after you've already sort of made the approach? So I don't usually talk you out of too much. Jim Meehan's Bartender's Pantry.
Question on this. So when he literally shipped the book to individuals, it comes in the coolest book jacket package ever because his co-writer is an industrial designer.
Yes.
Do you have it like that in the store?
No, that was something he held back. He gave us a lot of sort of fun and funky stuff. There were buttons and bookmarks and things like that.
Did you get the Sharpies?
I saw the Sharpies. Mm-hmm. They signed the books in the store with the Sharpies, but we didn't get left any Sharpies.
No, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
They had a lot of fun with that. This is very much about understanding the ingredients you're using, not simply the spirits, but everything else that you might be putting into a drink. And I think it's a step forward. It's not a beginner's book. It's a book for somebody who has already made some investment of time and effort. And I think it rewards that really well. Steve Sando's Bean book.
He was on. Yeah.
Yes. Holy cow. Totally made me feel like I'd been slacking for the last 25 years, not cooking, anything other than the 3 bean recipes that I make over and over
Which
again.
are?
There is a lentils like Boston baked beans from the first Joe Beef book.
Oh, yeah? No, yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And I hate Boston baked beans.
Really?
Because it's always way too sweet.
Well, yeah.
Theirs isn't too sweet. It's got a little bit of maple syrup.
What's the restaurant that was famous that went out of business in Boston that you can still buy all of their bean pots on eBay? Oh, what's the name of it? It was one of the oldest restaurants in the country.
Lockober?
What?
Lockober?
I don't know. I'll have to look it up.
All right.
But for me, they're not from Boston. It's Maine. And Sando does not like baked beans either, as you probably are aware. And so I love his book, but he gives them short shrift in the book. Does not, like I told him not to his face because he was virtual or not virtual, but, remote. I was like, you don't even say what kind of molasses to use. What's wrong with you? You know what I mean? Like, he's like, okay. You know what I mean? He's like, he wants you to buy this Indio oregano, which, by the way, is delicious. Delicious. Like, Wiley Dufresne came over to my house and we were making, I forget what we were making, but I was like, here's some oregano. And he's like, this is fantastic. I want this for my sauce. I'm like, well, you could buy it. Just go to Rancho Gordo. And I also gave Wiley the banana vinegar. Have you tried the banana vinegar?
I haven't.
Really, really good.
Seriously? Okay.
Really good. But according to the reviews, keep it in the fridge because it keeps moving and it doesn't necessarily move in a good direction if you don't keep it refrigerated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah. Anyway, so I tried a lot of stuff out of the book. The book makes you want to try a bunch of beans. And as you say, Matt, it makes you be like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because it seems like such a basic thing, a basic staple, and it's all fresh. So it totally wakes you up. And and I think it can be infectious, that kind of like, all right, beans, I took them for granted. I was like making the same thing over and over again. What else am I doing? I think any book that gets you out of a rut and out of a groove with something you think you know is triply valuable.
Yeah. I finally bought Scarlet Runners. Good. You ever cook the Scarlet Runner?
I don't think I have.
So they're one of those interesting ones where there are 2 textures of done. So you can have it like be relatively starchy, like almost eating, not really, but almost like a potato. And then you could take it more into regular bean land. Good.
Huh.
Enjoy. Big
okay.
too. Big, because they're a runner bean, I believe. Anyway, so yeah, good call.
I really liked Camille Becerra's Bright Cooking. This is a book that's built around, the initial part is a set of condiments and related sort of pantry items. And then the later part of the book is riffing with them. And again, that's the approach to cooking that I tend to favor. Personally, it's like, I want something in the refrigerator that I can pull out and what do I do if I try it on rice? What do I do if I try it on beans, pasta? And it's very good. It's very versatile like that. And it didn't feel like I was seeing stuff that shows up in lots of other places.
But it's stuff that's friendly to do at home, but like chef mindset, like her, like, she's professional.
Yeah.
So like, but is it more like stuff that, like, is it more her professional approach towards ingredients that are home, or is it more like home style stuff?
The dishes that she actually offers are fairly professionally styled. The condiments, you're making a little bit of extra effort to prepare them. Most of them keep just fine. You don't have to worry about like using them in 3 or 4 days. And so if you're in the market for like, I have to put dinner on the table in 20 minutes kind of stuff, you've got to make that long-term investment in the condiments to do it. So, I think it's very restaurant-oriented in the way that she approaches how she handles things. But, you've got some sauce and you've already made it. You throw it on some noodles and bingo, you have that quick dinner. Or you can put it into something more elaborate because it'll definitely reward a more thoughtful approach too.
Speaking of noodles, I bought a MRE style Sichuan hot pot at the local store the other day. And what you should not do when your family is there and they're not prepared for it is smell the gas coming out of the. It's okay. So you ever seen one of these things?
No.
Self-heating noodle bowls. You never seen these? It's like it's like an MRE for Sichuan hot pot. And you put the thing in, and then this crazy steam comes out, and I smelled it. I was like, oh, you know what? And then so I pulled out a torch and I lit it, making hydrogen gas. It did not go over well with the family.
How much did you pay for this thing?
I don't know, like $9. I just wanted to see what it was like. It was also crazy mala and crazy hot. But, anyway, sorry, go ahead.
I'm glad you survived.
Sauce on noodles. You said sauce on noodles, so, I was like, don't do that. Don't smell a gas and then light said gas when it's in a plastic vessel that's heating an unknown MRE in a language that no one in your house can understand or read. You know what I mean? Anyway.
Safety issues.
Yeah.
The Crop Cycle by Shane Mitchell. These are a series of articles that have appeared over the years on Bitter Southerner.
Now, this book, is this even on Amazon? No. I didn't see it.
No.
But it looks like it's like produced. It's not like...
Bitter Southerner produces it. They sell it themselves. We sell it at Kitchen Arts and Letters. I think a couple of other indie stores do.
Like, I hear this. You cannot buy it on Amazon.
We love books like that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's part of what we do is try to find things that are not going to show up, and enrich the oligarchs because they don't need to be enriched.
Right. So, but talk about so it's a series of essays, but like talk about stuff. Is this the one that had like all kinds of crazy rando information that's cool in it? Or there's a couple of those in here?
I think
I haven't read her other. What's her magnum one? Like Strange Foods? Farafield. Yeah.
Farafield. For the last 25 years or more, she's been writing, in Server and other places about local food customs and about the people who maintain them, the people who keep them going. And she's done. Farafield has articles about taro farmers in Hawaii and about, I think, goat herds in India. I didn't check that out before I left.
Goat herds? Yeah. Well.
But, there are all kinds of local foodways that survive because somebody is passionate about holding on to a tradition, and otherwise they might be left behind. Crop Cycle is definitely the American South, although she lives in upper New York State. She has a lot of family from the South. And she is writing about those people who keep those ways going. And sometimes it's a whole community, and sometimes it may be just a few people who are holding on to these things. She's so perceptive and so able to get people to confide in her and to talk to her. She's a very patient writer and interviewer. And if you wonder about what we may not be in touch with because it's just not, we live in a culture of immediacy right now. With or without certain social media apps surviving this week, it's always like, what can you do for me in 20 seconds? These are not those people. And she's preserving them and expanding the number of people who know about them.
And are there recipes as well, or no? Or is it more just like...
No, there may be like an occasional illustrative recipe, but I don't think that's not really the point of the book. This is about what are these foods? What are people doing to keep the old ways alive?
Nice. All right.
The Editor by Sarah Franklin is a biography of Judith Jones, who was, with Maria Guarnaschelli, one of the major American cookbook editors of the 20th century. Judith was a very complex figure. She was also an important editor for literary books. Sarah had a lot of access to Judith, who was not a very forthcoming person in many cases, and she opened up a lot to Sarah. And so did other people who were part of Judith's life. Judith was private in a lot of ways, and her willingness to talk to Sarah Franklin meant that other people around her who might have shut down for a biographer opened up.
You mean because they would have been ostracized?
Because Judith preserved her privacy in many cases. She didn't like to be forthcoming. When early biographies of James Beard were being written, Judith didn't want to talk about the fact that he was gay, and she shut down inquiries along those lines. So she could be fiercely defensive.
For good or for ill.
And in this case, she wasn't. She opened up to Franklin, who had earlier done. She did a book 3 or 4 years ago, a collection of pieces on Edna Lewis, and I think that sort of established for Judith that Sarah was serious. So this book is uncommonly rich because she had access to things that biographers often don't have.
And as a biography, if you're not necessarily 100% in the food world, as a page turner, is this going to be a movie someday? Is this like going to be the new whatever those movies are?
I would. There are a lot of elements that can make that happen. I mean, Judith was the woman who pulled the Diary of Anne Frank out of the slush pile. She edited Updike. She edited all kinds of big and glamorous names. And her personal life was certainly rich and I won't say complicated, but it wasn't all an easy path for her. It would probably have to be totally rewritten to make a movie of the week, but she's a major figure.
Nice.
And it's good that we have this kind of record because people like that who often stand behind the scenes have an influence that is sometimes unappreciated.
Yeah, like Michael Batterbury.
Yeah. And that's something that comes out in Sarah's book on Edna Lewis is how Judith's approach to the taste of country cooking shaped everything that happened with Edna afterward. Maybe not all of it appreciated by Edna's friends, but it's what we have. And so knowing about who these people are can make a big difference to understanding how the whole cultural terrain gets leveled or shaped.
The tastemaker. Yeah. All right. Awesome. I know this next one.
Flavorama, Ariel Johnson, totally, I think, inspiring and fresh and creative. And there are people who, and I'm not pointing any fingers, people who are brilliant in the way they understand things who don't necessarily do a good job of explaining them to other people. She has both gifts, like firing with two pistols.
Yeah, you should go buy that. She also did the art.
Yeah.
Go buy it. You should go buy it. What you should do is go buy it from Kitchen Arts and Letters.
We have it.
Do you have signed copies?
Not right now. I have to call her up.
Yeah.
Get her back in.
Exactly.
Sold out at Christmas time.
Nice. Good job, Ariel.
Food of Southern Thailand by Austin Bush.
Haven't you mentioned this one to me before? Or no?
I don't think I did.
All right, go ahead.
But beautifully photographed book. He did a book on Northern Thailand 6 years or so ago. Won a bunch of awards. This one's too early to know whether it will win awards, but it is enticing and immersive. And we don't have much about Thailand that really talks about the regional differences. So it sort of all gets lumped together it's more complicated than just what you find in Thai restaurants. But in this one, he's really sort of saying, this is the southern cuisine, the coastal cuisine. These are the things that shape it. And I'm always in favor of something that gives us better insight into the cuisine as it's experienced on the ground, as opposed to what we see in restaurants in New York.
Right. And he was like, is another example of he lived or is living in Thailand for a long time, similar to Ricker, but Ricker's north most of the time. But he's put the time in.
Yes. Right.
And so, but also understands kind of our universe as well. So it's kind of an interesting.
Yeah. I mean, he grew up on the West Coast, grew up in Oregon. I think he's now living in Portugal. I think he relocated in the last year or two, but long experience there. So he's not just some guy saying, oh, look, Thailand is fun. I will write a book.
Yeah.
That phenomenon happens often enough. But
this is his second book on Thailand, though.
Exactly. Yeah.
Got the north, now got the south. All right.
Maybe east and west. I don't know.
I've never been to Thailand or to Portugal.
Me neither.
Yeah. Need to go to both.
I would like to.
Yeah.
Happily. Islas by Von Diaz. This is a book that links the cooking of tropical islands around the world. When I first heard about this book, I was like, well, yeah. But her approach is really interesting because she's approaching it by technique.
I noticed one of the last chapters is pit and steam cooking. Now, are they all modified to do like a normal human being, or does she actually go out and be like, here's how you dig a hole in the ground and et cetera, et cetera? Because there are no real good books on how to learn how to dig a hole in the ground and cook a bunch of stuff.
I wouldn't sell that book on the basis of the hole digging. No.
Is there a good book on digging a hole in the ground?
There's a book on North Carolina barbecue.
after the one that was done by the press that's mainly after that original Chapel Hill book from the early 90s that went through and did the North Carolina tour? You know the one I'm talking about?
Early 90s. Now, this one is later. It is a University of North Carolina press book. I think it's just called Carolina Barbecue. I haven't looked at it in a while. I'd have to pull it off the shelf.
But it does hole in the ground stuff? Like, I want like real, like, dig a hole in the ground, get a sheet of zinc, the whole, you know what I mean?
I don't know about the zinc.
That's like Puerto Rico, right? Dig a hole in the ground, then you put a metal over, then you cover it over. Anyway, someone needs to write the definitive book on how to dig a hole in the ground and cook a big hunk of stuff in it.
I would put a book like that in the window. I mean, I don't want to go off too far on this tangent about how I'm furious with publishing this season, but every other freaking book is, I'm an influencer and here are my recipes. And I'm like, do we have anybody here who has long-term experience and insight, or are they just pretty to look at? But yeah, I mean, I would imagine that there's a lot to be said about that from all kinds of, what's the soil like?
Yeah. I want like the Bread Builder's book, which was the original hearth, how to build a
wood-fired oven.
Yeah, wood-fired oven. I want that for digging a hole in the ground. Are they both dead, Wing and Scott? Or just one of them? Didn't one of them die? From Bread Builder?
One of them died. I don't think the other one's dead.
Anyway, sorry. I digress as usual. So, but worth getting even though you wouldn't get it necessarily for digging holes in the ground.
I mean, this is the book with the recipes from Vanuatu. I mean, those things don't fall from the sky.
Right.
So her research is wide-ranging and thoughtful. And she's like understanding all the different factors and, why is canned meat so popular in so many island countries and cultures.
Yeah. I forgot to print the last page, so you'll have to go through them without me looking at them.
I am prepared. So we have Jang, The Soul of Korean Cooking by Minju Kang, which is built around 3 core Korean sauces. Again, insider's guide. I like anything that teaches you to think about food from within the cuisine, as somebody who has grown up within it does.
Yeah, we didn't have him on, but we had JDS on, and he said he learned Korean for like a year and a half to write this book, just so he could go hang out over there and know this stuff. So, I mean, I've read some of it. It is, yeah, it's not the last word on Korean cooking. It's really hard to write their last word. It's not even meant to be, though. It's not meant to be.
But it's a way in.
Yeah.
And particularly if you're the kind of person who is interested in knowing how it's done, but also wants to know how you can run with it. This is like, this is the freedom path.
Yeah.
My next book was McAtlas by Gary He.
I looked at the pictures that you had on the website. It's literally just
phenomenal.
Going to all crazy McDonald's.
So he went to McDonald's all over the world. He photographed the inside and the outside of these McDonald's. He photographed their menus. He photographed food from them. He's talking about how this enormous corporate behemoth has adapted itself to local cultures in Sweden and in Japan and in Italy and in Germany, and how it alters its menus, it alters the way it presents itself. It is a fascinating picture tour. I mean, just flipping the photographs is really interesting to see all these different buildings. But it is insightful and a little scary, just how deeply they change themselves to fit in places and how adaptable they are.
Does he play favorites?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there are places where you can tell he's clearly sort of enjoyed a particular menu item more than others.
Like anyone you remember, like Kazakhstan's got the best. You know what I mean?
I should have looked that up. I didn't. I didn't. The book comes in 2 versions. There's sort of a standard one, and there's one that comes in a slipcase that looks like a fry bag.
Ooh.
So it's...
Is that the one with the different color paper, or do they both have?
They both have the different colored paper on the spine. Yeah. So it looks sort of like a wrapper.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I appreciate
It's
that.
really thoughtfully designed. This is years and years worth of work.
So much McDonald's. Now that Morgan Spurlock is dead, he's now the historical authority on
maybe a little less jaded when it comes to McDonald's.
Yeah.
But-
Nice. Well, like I say, he's been to all these McDonald's and still keeping the faith. So he's not a hater.
No, he's not a hater.
So he's not like that famous guy who wrote the book on camouflage but hates the military.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, or the guy, what's his name? David King, who's now dead, but graphic designer who is like wrote the books on the imagery of Stalinist Russia, but hated him because he was a Trotskyite, but also hated capitalism. So I love these
Wow.
Yeah. He's like, Trotsky was the guy. Come on.
I don't think Gary is secretly a Burger King guy.
Oh, yeah. All right. Wendy's.
Or Wendy's.
Yeah.
Nerdbaker 2, Tales from the East Indies.
This looks amazing. I wanted to read this book.
Christopher Tan. So this is his second Nerdbaker book. He is an incredibly enthusiastic home baker, obviously remarkably skilled. And in this book, he's like crossing up all these different influences and techniques. The book is crazy adventurous.
He's based out of Singapore, you said, right?
Based out of Singapore, yeah. He has a more traditional book called The Way of Kueh, which is about a particular Singaporean dessert that is sort of occupies this unusual space between cake and pastry that used to be a home thing that is becoming industrialized or at least restaurantized. And he's making a pitch in that book for keeping it alive as a home practice. But in this book, this is a more personal, exploration. And he's bouncing off all kinds of influences. And he's just so creative and so knowledgeable. And it's beautifully photographed. Comes from a really good publisher in Singapore called Epigram Books. They do some really interesting localized publishing. We import from them quite regularly because of the strength of what they do there.
So on an import like that, how much does that sucker cost?
So I think it's like $55.
Yeah.
So, 40% of that is air freight.
Yeah.
We can't put those things on boats because you just never know when they're going to show up.
Yeah. All right.
Also an import is Timur, Stories and Flavors from Nepal.
Now this one, I looked up the one you had on your thing. I was like, okay, for those who don't know, it's lichen, which I forget the name of, the lichen, that is apparently the ingredient in this area with this group of people, the limbus, right? And then a meat, I'm forgetting what it was, like lamb. You cannot source this, unsourceable, but you're like, oh, I want it. And you know what I mean?
And this guy is telling you that there are 40 different regional and ethnic cuisines in Nepal.
Yeah.
So that's his focus.
But there are recipes, but they're not watered down. They're not like, you could substitute chicken.
No, it's not about that. It is totally uncompromising.
Yeah. So if you're a fan of oh, snap, you know what I mean? Because that's the kind of stuff that I like,
He's not making any concessions to the fact that you're not in Nepal.
Yeah.
You should get off your ass and go to Nepal.
Yeah.
And if you have the courage, we need that kind of documentation in English because it is so hard to find it for so many places. And this is really thoughtfully done. It's attractively designed. He didn't just sort of, type it up and send it to the local version of Kinko's or FedEx and have it run off. It's a good piece of bookmaking.
I like how you're bringing Kinko's back. That was a place we used to have to go get copies.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
And I just, so I went to college in 1981.
Yeah. It used to be that they would make you buy a whole bunch of books, but then most people couldn't afford to buy all of the books for your class if you were only going to have one chapter. So they semi-legally, the professors would take their collections to Kinko's and copy the section that you were supposed to read. And then you would buy these thick binders that were one chapter from 30 books. They're huge. And you would pay quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then you'd have to carry around this stack of crappily bound photocopies. You know what I mean? For the whole semester. And that's the way life was because there weren't no internet.
Yeah. And Kinko's was really smart because they always made themselves look like they were the local print shop.
Yeah, I mean, because their service was bad.
Well, if your stoner friend dropped out, they could probably get a job at Kinko's.
Yeah, they could continue to read all the good stuff.
That's right, even if they weren't doing a good job.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wild Apple Exhibition.
This was interesting, right?
3. So I've talked about this, I think, on this show before. Periodically, they've tried to do it annually, but there have been interferences. This group of people who wander the world looking for apple sports or abandoned orchards, find unique or unusual apples. Maybe they're heirloom varieties that have been forgotten that are growing in places. Sometimes they find them in like the parking lot of a hospital. This tree that's producing an unusual and remarkable fruit. They get together, they photograph them, they describe the texture and the flavor, whether it's a keeping apple, whether it's a cider apple. They're beautifully photographed. It's bad time for a blank spot. Mullen.
Yeah, I forget. Yes, but I don't have that page here. But yeah.
But beautiful photography.
The other thing about it, for those of you that look at it, the photography is beautiful, but like in the style of but modern like Beach from 1905. If you have the essay Beach, which of course you should have, or Burford's book or any of these books on apples, like. Well, not Burford, but the old ones that are written by pomologists don't go and they're only writing 1 or 2 sentences on these apples in the book on their taste, but they're written by people who like to eat apples and or use apples. So it's not only because it's like, this is the date that it flowers. This is what it needs to be pollinated next to. Subacid, sprightly. You know what I mean? Like, and that's it. Like, they're describing like the taste, like they're like powerful strawberry note, redolent of pineapple. Like, it's going off like people who are clearly apple lovers. Yes. So,
Yeah. And they're hypnotically beautiful, and they're not cleaned up for industrial.
So is this a paper or hard?
This is paperback.
Okay, and because it's not that many apple varieties per year that they select, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and so how much? Like, is this the size of like the Brooklyn Botanical Garden books or bigger?
They're 6x9.
So that's Brooklyn Botanical, isn't it? Maybe Brooklyn Botanical slightly smaller.
I think Brooklyn Botanicals maybe 5x8.
By the way, you like those Brooklyn Botanical. I mean, like, not that they're like fantastic books, but just as an idea, those little.
Yes. The systematic approach, yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, Brooklyn Botanical Gardens, the apples to grow and they have an apple book wherein they recommend that you get super dwarf stock and make hedgerows out of zillions of varieties of apples. And to this day, it's still a goal of mine eventually. The apples to grow and what's it called? Anyway.
So yeah,
there's no fabulous tubers, which is their other one, hidden treasures. Sure. Anyway, go ahead, sir.
And finally, Zhao Fan, Breakfast in China by Michael Z. We don't know a lot in English language books about Chinese breakfast, and this is fascinating. So much detail in there from all over the country.
All right. So we'll check all of those out. But like, which percentage of these is this like you must go to? I mean, they should all go to you. And do we have discounts on these for our people?
I will set that up. I will do that within the next hour once I get back to the store.
Question that you might have an answer to. I hesitate to ask this question, but do any of you have favorite recipes for Spam? I've been a lifelong enthusiast. My father got me started at a young age with Spam and eggs. What?
The top question.
I'm going to get that too, but I only have 1 minute. Yeah. Wondering what, if anything, you can do with it. Obviously, make masubi, right? And obviously, go read. See the movie. This is Hormel from 1964. Go to 1140 minutes where they talk about making Spam, and check out their analysis unit, which I swear to God is called the Anal Ray Unit. And they can do 350 cans of Spam a minute, which is 504,000 cans of Spam a day. But what do you think about a Spam cookbook? Do you like the Hormel one, or do you want Hawaii Cooks with Spam local recipes, because Hawaii is the Spam land?
Hawaii is Spam land. That's where I would go if you want to see what the enthusiasts do.
And which you should. And a question for you. I'm reading A Cheesemonger's History of the British Isles by Ned Palmer at the recommendation of @Andos here in the Discord, and it's quite nice. I'm wondering if I can read a similar book about French cheese making without having to learn French, French. Palmer repeatedly makes it sound like France is the world capital of cheese, which made me curious, which is unbelievable of someone my age, because when I was a kid, there was no question that France, it's only recently, thanks to the work of other people, that France isn't known everywhere as the undisputed capital of cheese. But go ahead.
I don't know another narrative history like that takes that point of view for any other country, for Spain, for Italy, for Portugal. I'd love to find it, but I don't know it. I don't think it exists.
All right, and last, sorry, Joe. Maddie writes saying, with small local mills seemingly in a boom looking for book recommendations on especially sourdough bread baking with fresh whole grain flours, any other classic or innovative sourdough books welcome? Any books on milling and what's so the only milling one I know is really Leonti's book.
Leonti's book, which is out of print, unfortunately. It's called The Flour Lab.
Right.
It's not impossible to find online.
And the Hayden Flour Mills person has a book, but it's not really about milling, right?
Yeah. And the milling aspect of it is the hard part. There are books that talk about using specific local flours. Mother Grains by Roxana Chulapat. Zach Culper's Bien Cuit sort of urges you to do it. Richard Hart's bread book talks about experimenting with local flours to understand how they're different. But I mean, his point of view is that whatever scientific analysis you get, you still have to work like hell with the things to figure them out, because there's so much that isn't distilled into it.
If I ever finish book 2, that's going to be a big part of it. I'm still milling strong. I'm still going through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds of wheat.
The people are waiting.
Oh, God. All right.
You shouldn't feel guilty or anything.
Yeah, right. All right. So I think it's all we have time for. We're all good? Matt, thanks so much for coming on.
Delighted. Thank you for having me.
Remember, people, when you're going to buy a book on cooking, which you should do, consider buying it from Kitchen Arts and Letters.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, Peterson. Go to Peterson's website. James Peterson selling all his cookbooks. Go to it. James Peterson. Peterson Books. Go. Cooking Issues.